I'm not going to change my decision based on that waiver. What if, for all intents and purposes, there is no choice?
Well, the scenario you presented is not one where there's no choice through, whether it's in philosophical terms, economic terms, or legal terms. The one that you've presented is preference. There's a difference between preference and legal choice. You prefer to go to bar X even though they're smoking there because your friends are going there. The idea is that you do not have the constitutional authority to impose your preferences upon other property rights owners to the point where it takes their property or unreasonably regulates their property. There's no constitutional right to amenities. There's no constitutional right to go to a bar at all. You can go to a restaurant, you can stay home, you can say, sorry guys, I'm out of here going to the smoking establishment tonight. And that tends to work. You look at a state like Wisconsin where there is what's characterized as a robust market for sorting. About a third of the bars in the state of Wisconsin are voluntarily smoke-free without the existence of a statewide smoking ban or local bans. And those are typically bars that cater to people like you and I, people that maybe more professional, don't smoke, don't want to be around smoke. But it also allows for kind of the blue-collar crowd, or whatever you want to call it, who likes to smoke, to have their place as well. And you simply have no legal entitlement to walk in and dictate the terms of how that owner allocates his indoor air. You may prefer that he do a certain thing with it other than others, but I may prefer to own slaves, but the Constitution doesn't give me that right, even if I wanted it, and rightfully so. Does that answer your question adequately without dogmatic, I understand, to throw in the slavery analogy at the end?
I think so.
Yes?
Well, kind of similar to what you said with you're not allowed to own slaves even if you choose to do that. There are certain things that they've said, that the U.S. has said that, for instance, certain common carrier, you can't discriminate based on, even if you own your property, if you're a common carrier, you can't say, oh, well, you're a Chinese person, so I'm not going to have you in my property. So it's at a certain point we do say, yeah, you have a right, but there's a public interest that's above and beyond that right. So do you think that there's an argument there for smoking, or is it not quite butt up to that limit?
That's a good question. The federal regulations governing common carrier, applying the Civil Rights Act amendments to private establishments through the 1964 Civil Rights Act and also through the Commerce Clause, argue that those facilities are in interstate commerce because they use tomatoes from a different state in their ingredients or whatever, or people travel on interstate roads to get there, is a little bit distinguishable in some important characteristics. One, the idea of banning discrimination is really rooted in the 13th and 14th Amendment. In other terms, it's called badges of slavery. You can't engage in acts that are still badges of discrimination and badges of slavery because the federal government has found that as a matter of public policy, those kinds of acts violate the 13th and 14th Amendment, or at least the spirit of the 13th and 14th Amendment. So what you have, the way that the courts have set it up anyway, is sort of this direct conflict between property rights on the one hand and 13th and 14th Amendment rights not to be free from discrimination on the other, which is a little different than the smoking ban situation where you have a statutory preference weighed against the constitutional right, the idea that the constitutional right clearly trumps. Interesting with the smoking ban, and most state smoking bans do that though, they have a rule that you can't exclude people who have called the authorities on you for violating the smoking ban, which is kind of an interesting version of what you're talking about. It's not based upon race or anything else. There's probably a good argument that it actually violates the right to exclude, which is another essential feature of property ownership.
I was going to say, why do conservatives and liberals sometimes get this wrong? Because this is a bipartisan, in a lot of states that pass smoking bans, Republicans and Democrats will come together to pass the bans. If liberals are, really concerned, and rightfully so, of keeping the government out of our bedroom and protecting our, certain rights, when it comes to like birth control and things like that, and conservatives are so concerned with protecting most of our economic rights, why is this particular issue? Why can't people see this sort of like freedom-oriented issue here when it comes to smoking bans?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, and should note, John Kasich, was just elected governor, is relatively free market, relatively conservative by most standards. However, I heard him on a radio program indicating that he was all in favor of the smoking ban and would do nothing about it, most likely, because he didn't see it as a jobs issue. And he was going to focus just on jobs. And he made a comment like, you know, I don't want my wife choking on smoke when we're in a restaurant. And I think the difference, there are many differences. One is they don't see it as a jobs issue, even though the economists indicate to us that almost 900 jobs have been lost because of the smoking ban in Franklin County alone. That's a pretty significant job loss, not to mention the state revenue that's lost. And that's really the only argument that appeals to politicians is, hey, you're losing some tax revenue, you're losing jobs. I don't think many politicians are rooted in any kind of a serious philosophy or a serious view of limited constitutional government. And many of them do see the externality problem that most of society struggles with. They still believe that there's an inherent right to be in a bar or to be at a place that allows smoking and to dictate terms to that smoker. Because of that kind of stickiness that one of the questions was about, that, well, my friends are going there, I really don't have that choice. And they don't really see things in terms of black and white like that. And I think that really is the challenge. The strictly limited version of property rights that we talk about and they believe in is really not necessarily always espoused by most politicians. I'm done if you're done.
All right, well, with that, we'll wrap it up. I want to thank everyone for coming out. Please join me in a round of applause for Maurice Thompson.